So I have Gary and Gina Semenek from Canada. They are friends of mine in the Coaches Leadership Group. We have the Coaches Leadership Group. We call it CLG, and that is a leadership group that we actually formed as coaches and leaders. They're team leaders, they're coaches, and they are icon agents and a husband and wife team, and just really wonderful presenters and wealth of knowledge. So I'm going to ask you guys to make sure you guys stay on mute, save your questions for later. And I'm just going to, give you guys the floor. Thank you guys so much for being here. I love learning from you guys. It is always just like tons of knowledge.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tanya, and to everybody that's here and whoever gets to watch us on the replay, hello and enjoy. We'll do our best to keep everybody awake this next hour. So to the guys that were here last week, I listened to what you had said about, not doing presentation potentially and just keeping it real. So we decided to do just that. We're going to do a lot of live screens and just show you typically how we utilize technology to leverage what we do, right? And, Gina and I have been at this now 12 years. We run a team formally as a team since 2016. So we've had lots of ability to go through the aches and pains, and, we're not new at this. And we're not yet ready to retire. And, we utilize technology as much as possible. So just before I get into it, for all of you here, who's on the newer side of your career, into maybe 2-3 years? Are you guys all newer? Okay.
Most. Heather has 6 years. Martin's a former broker. Michaela and Nayeli are new, and then Matt's newer as well.
Okay. So, and the reason I ask that is because, especially for the newer agents, it's very confusing and the industry's changing rapidly. So it's a race all the time just to keep up as much as it is to, dominate listings and get those listings. So we're going to get into that right away. I want to give you a little bit of background. I had to learn my way through osmosis of failure. And Gina, me already a couple of years in the industry before she joined me. So I'd already gone through a fair amount of ache and pain to get to a place of we got good at conversion. So, for us, what's really been critical is we have a mentality, and I think it's the best one for you to adopt, is to decide who your perfect avatar is, meaning your client, right? You need to have in mind who they need to be and that they have to be coachable, especially, here in Canada, Ontario in particular, we were extremely overheated, and we've gone into a hard correction here, very similar to what happened in 2008 for you guys. So it's serious here right now. And, you guys are also seeing softening in your market, not to the extent we are, but, this is when it's critical. And I talked about this last week, and I'll get into presentation shortly, that you decide, what business you want to take, frankly, because sometimes taking the first or being first to get the listing is not necessarily the best right now, right? Meaning that if they're not coachable and you say, hey, your property's worth $500,000, and they say, well, I want to list it for 700. We have an attitude on our team that we know what we're doing. We're not taking that listing. We're going to pass it up and just go for people that are motivated to sell. Because the hard part of that is it's great to have your name on a piece of paper that says it's your listing and a sign on the lawn. But it's not so great if you can't get it sold, and then they're suddenly harassing you that it's your fault that you're now behind the market, right? And it's always going to be your fault no matter what, until it's a win. So always just be really cautious about your client. A few things that, we do with the seasonality we have, and I'm going to go into share screen right away so you can see what we do. We go out, so every member of our team, and I'm going to be showing you this digitally. So actually, I'm going to take off my back screen background. Sorry, guys, hang on one sec. I'm just going to turn it off. Why is that doing that? I don't want to do that. Is that going to show up? No, not necessarily. So hang on. I just want to get my background turned off. And I cannot see where to just turn it off.
You
Okay,
would do, so if you do stop video, you just hit blur background and then hit it again, blurred background. Stop video and then just hit blurred background.
there we go. All right, thank you. So we have a booklet that we have made up. It's a binder, right? And we have our branding on it. And then inside the binder is everything that we would want to take out to one of our listing calls. So we have thank you cards, Christmas cards, birthday cards, things like that. And then we have our brochure for listing. Depending on the listing value, we sometimes use a trifold type of feature sheet, and or we go into a full-blown brochure, which I'm going to show you guys pictures of. And then we have in the backside of this our listing and buyer brochures, right? So this goes out with us every time we go out. And something that we do before we get to the door of any house that I like to do, I tend to be a person that likes to go one and done. I don't like the going back for a second. Gina tends to be different than I do. She'll usually want to go for a second. My attitude is I'm going there to get it, because I've been booted to the curb so many times because somebody came in with the attitude I'm a one and done, and they get the listing. So I go there with that same mentality. Hard part is when you haven't yet been to the property and or it doesn't have good listing history, you're sometimes guessing a little bit as to, you know, what's the secret sauce in the house, what's it got in it, you know, how updated it is, all that good stuff. So I do as much legwork as I can. I sometimes drive by the property to just at least get a visual on the exterior before I you know, even get the opportunity to go in, especially if there's not a lot of history. That way I then put myself into a position where I put a CMA together, or value property valuation, and go with as much information as I can. You know, something I learned from Jeff Glover, who's a very high-end producer with KW, is he does it very much the same way. And he goes in with a philosophy of go through the house, do your thing, sits down with them. He's got his numbers, but he always asks them if they have any idea what their house is worth before he gets into his synopsis of what the house is worth. And the reason he does that is because he's been caught with his pants down, for lack of better words, in that you know, he had a number in mind and it was way off base from what they had for a number. So I like that philosophy because it really gives you the opportunity to suss out where they are in terms of the reality of their value of their property, so that you are not going to be caught trying to react, right? Or them, you. You can soften the blow of, say, you've got the house valued at maybe 500, and there's, you know, again, I'll throw out the 700, right? Now you've got a differential that you have to overcome. And when you put that document on the table and they've not yet been able to see it, and you don't even know that that's where their mind is in terms of value, it gives you the ability to soften the blow and work your way to a mutual ground, or otherwise don't take the listing. So that's kind of some of what we do. I'm going to just move into how we get to the table. And then I promise I will pull up documents so you guys can see what we do. So a lot of times we are very much, after 12 years of being at this, it's a lot of repeat and referral, and or we do online lead generation. So that's the bulk of where we get all our new business from. So we do use a system called Commissions Inc., which is very similar to SkySlope, and we do paid ads. So we're in a nurturing type environment, and we've gotten really good at it. And that's actually taught us a lot about talking to people in scripts. So I can't implore enough how important scripts are for all of you. Something that I'll do for everybody. So I'm going to be putting up my chat or my contact information in the chat towards the end of this, and allow you guys to reach out to me. We've got a ton of documentation that we can send you guys, forms, branding, whatever we've got, we're happy to send it to you guys to make your jobs easier, so that you can really, really leverage the hell out of your brand and technology, right? It's really critical. Something that I'm going to suggest that, you know, I'm going to show you in a minute. I'm going to go to Google Maps, and this is a feature that a lot of agents, I've not yet met any agent that actually knows it's a feature within Google, and it's fantastic. And we've won a lot of listings just because of that. So for where we live, you know, we live about an hour and a half north of Toronto, and we're in cottage country here. And, you know, the one mistake, so I'm going to tell you a few things right off the hop, a couple mistakes I made when I first named my team. I named my former team the York Region Eco Team, which wouldn't likely mean anything to any of you, but that would be a geographical name. So it really pigeonholed us pretty quickly because we work a bigger area than York Region, right? You know, like all of you, you're in counties and towns and cities. We have the same thing here. So the problem we started to run into really quickly as we expanded our geographical network was the objections right away were, why is somebody from York Region calling me when I'm in the Kawarthas or I'm in Simcoe? So we got really good at objection handling, and we started to use Google to overcome that. And, you know, eventually I changed the name of the team to the Capstone Group because it just became really tiring. And we did give up business because of the name, unfortunately. So we retired that and then moved into what we call the Capstone Group. And so I'm going to do a share screen right away, and I'm going to show you a little feature in Google that we use and how quick you can really learn it. And I'll send you guys a step-by-step presentation on how to go do this. So don't try and keep up today, just listen and learn, and then message me and I'll send you the exact how to walk through doing this. So I just have to go find it. I may have to reopen it. So hang on a sec, guys. Just not seeing it. I got too much stuff open. All right, so we're going to go here. Now, you guys can see my Google screen, right? Okay,
Yep.
so what you're going to do is right up here, if you've got a Google account, you're going to have these little dots. You're going to click on it. You're going to scroll down to Maps or wherever it is on your screen. You're going to go find Maps. And I just have to move you guys out of the way. So one thing about, you know, Google, whether you like geotagging or not, you have to have your geotagging on so it knows where you are. And you can do this. I'm on my desktop right now, so it knows I'm at home. And this is the area right around our house. So we live right in this area right here. We're right next to a lake. And what's really cool about this, and this is why it's such a great feature, especially when you're working out of your geographic area, and even if not, we use this to our advantage in a lot of ways. And I'm going to explain how many different ways we use this in a minute. So when you go in here, you're going to go up to this whole little search bar area here, and then you see these little lines on the left. You're going to click on that, and then you're going to see this tab that says Saved. You're going to click on that, and this gives you an ability to create a list, right? So you can go in here and do plus new list. I've done one for our property here to show you guys an example, and I've got 150 places in there. So where we are, we're in cottage country. There's all kinds of venues, restaurants, resorts, hotels, casinos, you name it. It's all around here. Churches, everything, schools. I put everything you could put into this list. And where this really brings value to you, and you can see it's all pinning all these businesses that I've got in here over about a 40-mile radius. Where it becomes valuable to you is you'll, as you know, whether you're seasoned or new, you're going to eventually find that the majority of buyers are not coming from your own backyard. They're coming from somewhere else. They're usually attracted to the community you're in, moving from somewhere else. And we know that. So we very quickly, when people walk through the door at our listings or open houses, wherever we are, or even when we go out to listings, this is something, one of the first things I do is before I even go into the listing, I pull up my Google Maps and I create a list in front of the house, right? So I'm right out front of the house. I type in this new list name, 3349 Beckett Place is the address of our house. And then I write a little blurb about it, right? So I just did what I did here. I wrote a little blurb about my house. I obviously know it intimately, so I could write more intimately about it. But if you haven't been in the house yet, keep it basic, right? Just talk about the house and the community, and then take it from there. Something that's really on a need to know, and it'll be in the presentation, is the ability to, when you're done, make sure you check your sharing options, because when you build these lists, they're sitting in private mode, that they're not published, so the public can't see them. So when you're done creating a list, you always want to go to your sharing options, and you want to make sure it's shared, that it's open to the public, right? You don't want it sitting in private, otherwise it doesn't really do you any good. This is a searchable list. Now, what's really good about it is, let's say you've got the listing, And I'm going to circle back to the listing in a second, why it's so important to sellers. But let's say you've got a listing, you're doing an open house, and you've got somebody who just came in, they love the place, they want to know about the schools, usually the biggest question we get asked, or restaurants, right? Those are usually your two biggest things. So we talk about the schools, we can pull them up on our list, and we also have all the restaurants in here. So what I typically tell people is, hey, do you mind giving me your cell number? I'm going to send you a list. Or what we even do more recently with the advent of technology is we actually do a QR code where we embed this link into the QR code, right? So we have a get to know the area list inside of a house. So we put an 8.5 by 11 with a QR code on it. We just tell them to scan it. And then basically it gives them the list. And then, while they're there, we're small talking with them, saying, hey, you know what, if you guys are up here from out of town looking around, you're probably going to get hungry, go check out this restaurant. And it's on the list. So the cool thing is, because they don't know, where they're going here, is they can leave the house, plunk in the name of that restaurant on that list, and right away, they've now got GPS directions to the restaurant. So you just instantaneously become a fan to people coming into your open houses. And the other thing that this has won us listings for is because we've done something that no other listing agents are doing when they're walking in, and how we promote not just their house, it's also about the community and why people really, really want to be here. Or should be here, right? It's not just our passion. Now we've got a list that supports it. Sellers love this when they see it, and they're just as awestruck as we are, because nobody knows this feature's embedded into Google until you do. And so now you guys can use this to your advantage, and it really doesn't cost anything. It's free. You've all got Google accounts, and you just need the 5 minutes. I can literally populate a list of 50 places in like literally 5 minutes out front of a house. Yeah, Gina's actually got a QR code there with a list. So she may have to pull down your background, Gina. But that's what we put in houses, right? Even when we're not there. So that's the other thing, and I know I'm hung on this a long time, and I'll get into the whole listing side in a minute. This is a big part of what we do, because even for agents, more often than not, we're dealing with agents that are not local to the area as well. So they're coming in, don't know anything about the area. They're being pulled there by their clients, right? And we send this to the to the buyer agents prior, and we tell them, good news is it doesn't have any of our marketing in it, so you can take credit for the list, right? And do a solid favor for your clients so they know exactly where you guys are, sending them to, and all the things the community has. You don't have to answer those questions now. So you look really good for your, fellow peers in the industry, because you've now helped them figure out something they don't have to do. So I'm going to move away from this. If there's any questions, I'll take 1 minute on this, and then we'll move into the listing side of what we do. Any questions on this?
Heather Lewis has a question.
Yes, hi. I'm actually pulling it up on my screen. This is super cool. Thank you so much. I didn't know this existed. So as I pull up my own address, right, and when I'm going to save and I do restaurants, how does that, can you show how you actually save that in there and it's pulling up?
Yeah, actually, so let's do this. I'll go out of here for a second, and I'll just create a new list.
I was just going to say, can you create a new one? And then Gary, you're just talking about if you go to a listing, you're not doing this when you're looking at buyers' houses and stuff, are you? Or just listing?
Well, even if I go out on the buy side, because I'm typically dealing with buyers that are coming from somewhere else, I will do it there too, right? Oh. And I send it to buyer agents, because the buyer agents have the same thing as us. They're not usually in their own backyard.
Yep.
They're coming from somewhere. So it really builds the relationship between us and other realtors, and it helps those clients that we're dealing with that are coming from another place, right? So it's
can you go out so they see? Can you go just right back out so they see that?
Oh, you guys you can't see me? Okay.
No, we can see you, but you're in the list. So for those, so you can just show the steps out, like go back one when you're in your Google account.
Hang on.
Because I know you showed that page.
Okay, can you guys see this over on the left where I'm creating a new list? Okay. That's one thing I don't like about Zoom. I wish it would just populate screen after screen with you.
Yeah, are you
Okay.
guys following this? Where I was saying go out of where it says Google search and to start over, go right back in.
Oh, you want me to go out of here and back in?
Yeah,
Um,
she wants you to show them where you found to start this list.
Okay.
Where were the
All
three
right.
dots?
Sorry,
All
just
right.
step by step.
Yeah, no problem. So when you're in Google Maps, right, you're going to see, you can come up here and enter in an address. By
So
default,
it's just any Google map. When you go to Google Maps, you're not in your Google profile. It's just Google Maps.
just Google Maps, but it's best to be in your logged in profile, right? Because it now knows it's you. And you're now going to be able to build lists and keep them in your history, right? In your profile.
Yep.
So now instead of putting in an address, the system already knows it's geotagging me, right? It knows I'm close to home or at home. So now what you're going to do is you're going to come into here where these three little tabs are. You're going to click on that. You're going to go into the Save tab. And then you're going to go in and create a new list. I'm just going to create a bunch of blibbity blobbity bloobity, and we're going to take it from there. So I just want to, so this should be here now. I'm just going to refresh the screen because I just want to make sure it is. So it's there, right? And it's set in private at the moment. So what I could do is I can come into here now if I want and go into the map and I can zoom in on the area. So I'm in my general area here. And what you can do is, let's just go down to Aurelia. This is a big town just south of us. So you can see all these little tabs in here. These are businesses that I already went in and grabbed. So I'm not going to bother doing that. I'm going to show you a business I don't have on the list. So you're going to click on it. And what it's going to do is it's going to pull up that business. And now you're going to go to your save list. You're going to click on that. And you're going to want to add it to the list you just created, right? So that's the list I just created. And it just added it to it. So now it's got one property on it. And then you just keep doing that. So what I do is I typically, if I don't know where you guys are, let's just talk about where I am. So I'm in Aurelia. This is a town of about 25, 30,000 people. And there's all kinds of things here, right? So you can see veterinary hospitals. There's the city of Aurelia. There's beaches here, you name it, we've got it. So I go grab it, right? Anything that you think is fun for you or important to you, you want to make sure you go and grab. Schools, churches, fire halls, municipal offices, anything that any of us has to deal with on a daily basis for fun or life, you want to have in that list. That's why I have this other list that basically has 150 places in it, because I can share that with all our local people that we start to gather. And they get to know, everything there is to know about the area. I am going to send this out to you guys. So I will, at the end of this, put my email address up. And excuse me, just send a request to me to send this to you. It's pretty straightforward. And once you do it once, it's going to go really quickly. And I do this all the time on listing calls, and people are mind blown by it. And it's simple and it's free. And it leverages the hell out of us, right? It allows us to sit back and allow technology to do the job. Does that help you, Heather? Yeah, and don't worry. Like, honestly, guys, reach out to me anytime, or I am going to send this. I've got what's called a Google 3.0. I'll send to you guys, and away we go. You can certainly check it out. Now, I'm going to show you something we do.
Gary, I was
I'm
just
gonna
going to say,
circle.
maybe explain to them about the doing the QR code, or did you have that explained in your presentation as well?
So no, what we typically do is, I'll go back in there for a sec, because that's a good point, Gina. So we use Bitly. You can use the free version or paid version. If you use paid, then you can do a lot more branding with it. And if you don't, and you use the free version, all you're going to basically do is, and I just have to move this out of the way, you just come up here, you're going to grab this link, right? Well, actually, I want to make sure I'm in my list first, so hang on. It's not moving back. So let's just go and click on this. So what you could do is even just go grab the shared link, right? So you can get a link to share. And I would just copy this link, right? So it's now on my, it's pasted on my, whatever you want to call it, on the cloud. So basically what you do is if you have a Bitly account, you just go into Bitly and you create a link. So you could call it your Aurelia list, Aurelia, everything about Aurelia, right? You be creative, call it something, and then basically you go in and embed that link into it. And then you can create a QR code within that, right? So Bitly allows you to do short tail links as well as QR codes. And you can then create a QR code. We save them for every listing we do. And then as you see what Gina did, we just go and take our letterhead and we embed that QR code on it and print it off. And now people showing up at your listing, whether you're there or not, can come in and scan that QR code and know everything they need to know about the area. And your sellers are going to love you for this.
And we'll make
your
sure we
fellow
give you
agents.
that information about Bitly and stuff like that, where you can find the link and everything else to create that QR code.
Yep. So
This is wonderful. Everybody's blessing just said thank you. This is great. And this is, that everyone, we're getting a lot of listing ideas, but everybody has something different. Like Heather gave a phenomenal one last week too.
well, and for me, I'm going to just be really brutal. I have a go out, hunt it, kill it, and bring it home, right? I got a family to feed just like all of you. And I'm not messing around when I go out to get business. Because look, I could be competing against any one of you here, and someone's going to win and someone's going to lose, right? And no offense, I want to be the winner. I want us all to be winners, but someone in a relationship with a buyer or seller is only going to have one winner, one loser, right? There's just no way around it. So be the winner. And always, like I said, guys, make sure that that's the client you want. They need to be your avatar. Do not settle, especially when the markets are going into a little bit of chaos. So it's really critical to use this to your advantage. And so the next thing I'm going to pull up is, because I didn't do a slideshow. I wanted to keep it real for you. So we use a system called Trello. Some of you may be familiar with it, some of you not.
Love Trello.
We love Trello. It is not expensive. You can buy a typical single user license for about $150 a year. And this becomes your virtual filing cabinet, right? So you can see it literally is like a filing cabinet. So these would be all our main tabs for everything we do, right? So we have a team. This is ground zero for us. So when we grab a listing, a few of the things that we do, or we know we're going to be going out, is, and why I love this is because let's just say you left this book at home. It really doesn't matter now, right? And I frankly don't like to be paper in hand. And I'm going to back up for a second. When you have a chance to know you're going to get a listing appointment, spend the time talking to that potential client before you go out there, right? Get, more or less how old they are. Because if they're older, they're typically going to want to stick to this side of life, right? They're not going to be all super digital. I'm kind of a rarity to that. For being close to 60, most people are not swimming the same way we do in technology. So it's really critical to know how they want to do it. And frankly, if you forget your book at home, you can go to the listing now, and this is on your phone, on your computer. As long as you've got a connection to the internet, you're good to go, right? So I never worry about what we're doing. A few things that I'm going to go in here and show you guys is like our listing questionnaire. So hopefully this opens up that you guys can see it. Did you guys see it advance the screen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So this is something that I wish I could take credit for building out. This is, something that we did when we were part of a big team. And, Gina certainly came here once we, came back and regrouped as the Capstone group. So we've kept it really simple and clear and easy to follow. And all the agents just follow everything with regards to being in Trello and the tabs. So this would be stuff that they're going out to make sure they get for information when they're going to see a seller or a potential seller. And then we also have a listing questionnaire. So you can either print this out, or you can work, in DocuSign, AuthentiSign, whatever you want to basically fill this in digitally. And we just go out to the property. We do, all the obvious stuff is here, their phone numbers. Do they have a survey? All your most important questions that you want to make sure you know, right? Amperage, age of the house, windows, AC. Do they own that stuff? Is it a rental? Because that's a big problem here with rental items in houses. The contracts are insanely expensive to buy out. So we want to know if they've got a furnace and AC rented, what does that look like? Because those contracts can easily lead to $10,000 to $15,000 to buy them out. You don't want those surprises when you're at the table trying to sign a deal. Some pump flooding issues, anything, right, that you can, validate with them. Do they happen to know if there was any deaths, suicides? Did they do the renovations, or were they there when they bought? Security cameras, devices, it's really good to know with the advent of, Ring doorbells and Nest thermostats and all of that. Is that there? Is it staying? And if it is, we want to make sure that those all get factory reset. So we talk to them about that they need to factory reset everything. So it removes some of the liability from the sellers when they let go of the property. Waterfront, we do a lot of waterfront work, and we do a lot of rural work. So well and septic is something that we deal with quite often. So we really want to know some of the critical things about that. And if they don't know, then we go find out what we can in advance of listing the property. Pools, is it salt or chlorine? You can see all the questions, right? And then we basically have them sign it. It is a declaration, so we want to make sure it's valid and legal. Okay. So that's one of the things that we do. And hang on, I'm just going to come out of here, go back in here for a minute. So something that we do, we send out to each client too, is we know we're going to basically get them locked in. And even if we haven't got them yet, we talk about the fact of the matter is there's really good steps to having successful showings. So we set the expectation for them to understand what they're going to go through. So we created a list that is just a straight rundown of what they need to do on a daily basis, right? And we send this to them digitally, as well as, depending again on the client, if they're paper people, this list goes out, we print it off, and we leave it with them, right? To make sure that they're doing these simple things like putting toilet seats down and towels and blah, 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 you name it, right? Because the last thing that people want to do is leave a bad impression, because that's exactly what buyer agents are looking for, is everything they can to undermine the price of the property, right? And frankly, people are judgmental, so they want to walk in and feel really good about the property they're in. And we don't want to be attached with negativity if we can avoid it. So we really coach our clients up on this. And so I'm going
Gary, I
to
have
move
a
away from
question.
here. I'm going to show you. Sure.
Gary. So you have these all organized in Trello. Do you send them out to them in Trello? Do you email them from here to them? Or is this just where you hold everything?
So great question. We hold everything here. I do have it, I've got servers and stuff, as well, right? So this is our mobile version of, if we forget everything else, we can go out on the road and know we've got this, right? I don't take my computers and hard drives with me. So this is really our fail-safe for the days that you maybe forget something, because it happens to each one of us. So what's here is also on our computer, right? We have a server system here that is sort of team use, more for Gina and I, and we have everything backed up there. So, my thing is, computers crash, technology crashes, it is at least sitting on a hard drive, and I use solid state hard drives. So if you drop it, less chance of it getting damaged, right? That it's going to continue to work. And you learn by osmosis of failure, like I did. When you drop a computer or a hard drive and it breaks the needle, you're kind of SOL, right? At that point, all that work is gone. So
I'm just going to add to that. This is like the go-to for our team as well. So when you create all these different boards that are within Trello, you can invite team members to them so that they get access to it. So Gary and I have our own private personal stuff that we work on, but stuff like this listings, it's available to the team and they can get all of the information here as well.
Yeah, and it's a good point. So even for team members, with them having an active license in here, they can actually set up their own private boards that we can't see, right? So if they have personal information in there that they just want to use the technology that, frankly, they don't have to pay for. Well, they do. They pay in the commission that they give up for being a part of a team. They can be in here and have privacy and autonomy, right, with whatever they've got going on. And, so it's remarkably good technology, and I find very low hanging fruit in terms of value. It adds a ton of value. So I'm just going to take you guys over the screen for a second. And this, I'm going to lead into is how we go out and present ourselves to our potential new people. And even past clients that decide to relist, we always want to impress upon them why us versus someone else, right? And how we're always constantly reinvesting in ourselves and technology and in them so they can feel the value. Because if you can't show them how you're different than everybody else, you're the same as everybody else, right? And now there is going to be a heavy competition to get, who's there. And they're going to become more judgmental and selective, by the person who comes in like us that can show them we've got all this backbone. 9 times out of 10, it's our business to lose, right? It's not our business to try and win. We know we've got it, the majority of the time. So I'm going to show you, like when we go to people's houses, I'm actually going to take you through the listing process for us. So it's pretty similar to what everybody's been taught. We get to the house, show up before you're supposed to be there. Typically, and if you're going to be late, call them for the love of God. You've got a potential $5, $10, $20,000 paycheck that you could be blowing by being late. So always be early, make your list when you're out front so you can impress upon them that, Google list. That's one of the first things we do. And then, I get a sense of who they are, what they are. And, if they're really formal and they feel like they're really attached to their house, we let them walk through with us and get the feedback and everything they want, right? It takes longer, but I'm like, listen, I want them to connect with me and build rapport. So it's really critical that we do that. So we walk through with them, take notes as we're doing it. We have our listing sheet. We're getting all that information, right? We use an MLS data sheet or we have another sheet that we use to gather information. And we go through, get all the facts. And then, we typically get asked, do you want to sit in the living room or at a table? I always want to sit at a table so I'm right across from you so I can start to really placate on who you are as a person, right? I pay attention to NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So I read their body language, their voice, their tonality, everything, right? And we start to emulate it. So if they're speaking in a higher rate of speech and or energy or lower, or they're turning constantly, scratching their head, I'm emulating everything they're doing. I'm a monkey. I'm a monkey see, monkey do. And that really creates connection with them. And we talk really straight up about a lot of different things right there at the table and get, down to the meat and potatoes of why we're there and impress upon them, the price. So as we get into it, I've often got my book. I'm going through the property valuation. And before I even get in,
are you still sharing this screen? Or do you still want to share this screen? I'm not sure.
You guys can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. So I'm going to leave it up for a minute.
Okay.
I can pull it down if you want while I'm talking, if it's better for everybody.
No, I was just wondering, just because sometimes people forget the screen's up.
No, I'm going to come back to this in a minute. And just keep me on track with time. I know we've got about 20 minutes left, and I'm going to utilize all of it so that you guys get a real sense of what we do. The big things that you're going to get is either on the phone or at the table. Besides what is my house worth is what do you charge, right? So I'm going to get into the commission thing in a minute, and we made it really easy for people to be in control of that. So they feel justified, right? Because that's their big ego stroke, is that they, if they feel they can push you down, they feel like they've won, right? So coming back to the valuation, I learned this a long time ago from studying people. Never go there with what right? If you've already done your homework and you've had the ability to pull up a number, and again, it's going to be 500 and you don't know where their expectation is, you're playing with fire at that point. So I always ask, so, you've been here 10 years, any idea what your house is worth in today's market? And they're almost always saying, well, you're the expert, you tell us. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I've got the number right here, but I want to hear from you guys how you feel about the property and, you know, how you feel it would stack up in the market. And they will come up with a number, right? So I right away then know if I have to soften the blow or we're in the game. And, you know, either way, I'm good with it because I already know that if I have to soften the blow, I'm going to say, well, you know what? I love the fact that you believe, you know, this is what your house is worth. How did you come to that determination before we get into the number, right? So I can at least just keep feeding into it, find out if they got static value, or if they're just smoke and mirrors, not really interested. And we usually suss that out, right? And get that answer. And then I just pull out my numbers and say, okay, so, you know, I'm at 500, you're at 700. We have a gap to close and deciding, you know, what's the best course of action for you here. And as I go through that, you know, I just get into the reality is, are you really serious about selling? Is there a plan in place? Next steps, is this about getting as much money as you can versus where the market is, you know, because the reality is if you're that far apart from where the market is and we've got real-time data, we're going to have a hard time getting you up to 700,000, especially if the market's retreating, right? So we really pull them into the reality of where things are and just get on with it, right? And if you don't feel that you can get them down to your number, I pretty quickly just say, listen, you know what? I love the fact that you know, have a value in mind, but I can't get it supported by virtue of what the market is saying it's worth. And buyer agents are going to come in with the same attitude, right? You know, they're going to think you're out to lunch. Firstly, how are you coming up with a 700 valuation when the rest of the market's at 5? That's not today's conversation. We basically just make a decision at that point, whether we're in, we're out. 9 times out of 10, we're in because we can get them down to where we are and get the motivation and the plan behind what they're doing. So something that we also do in amongst this, and I just have to see if it's here, it's probably over in my marketing. We're going to go there in a minute, but I'm going to just show you one thing before we go further down that listing hole. We basically show people what their property is going to look like for us on the back side, right? So we pull them in here, we click on it and say, you know, like this is typically how your listing is going to be taken care of. You know, we walk them through. This is how all of our agents basically have an expectation of consistency and that we're doing everything on an A to Z list, right? So we've got this all identified in the back end. All of our agents have to follow this list or they basically get themselves down to the principal's office. You know, why haven't you done it? And we don't let them off the hook. You know, this is really critical that everything gets moved along so that there's no balls dropped, so the clients know they're in the best hands, right? So I'm going to move off of this. I'm going to pull you over to, and I'm just not sure if you're going to be able to see me go there.
I can see it.
Okay, so can you see my marketing board now?
Yes.
Okay, so this is another thing we do. I'm very much about brand consistency. You can see we use the EXP, we're over the EXP. So the colors are embedded into everything we do. We have a lot of fun with it. You know, we keep it light, we keep it edgy, but each team member has their own profile in here, right? So there's buyer consultation books. I'm not sure if my internet's going to be a little sketchy. It's telling me it might be. Business cards, buyer brochures, listing brochures. So this is stuff that we pull up when we're at the house doing our presentation. So in my case, we can come in here if we're digital or I forgot everything at the house. I can open this up and I've now got a slideshow for them, right? That I can walk them through everything we do. So our brand is here, first page. I'm all about keeping it as individual as possible for the agent, right? That it's not promoting the team, it's actually promoting you. So on the first page of every listing or buyer pack, we have each agent write up their own bio. And then we have a picture of them. We have, you know, a generic signature, and then go into page by page what's going to happen, right? Our services, our value-added services. I'm going to send this to all of you guys. If you send me an email, I'm happy to push this all out to you. And again, the recording's here, so you can always circle back and watch this. You know, personal value-added services. We are a full service brokerage and team. So we basically spend a lot of time emphasizing that. something my wife and I are widely known for in our community is our community involvement. So we haven't created a formal charity, but we created our own brand identity with Capstone Cares, and that we give back a portion of the proceeds of every sale that people do to multiple different things, including running events in the community. So my wife and I, this is the mayor of our former community that we moved away from. We ran a large car show every weekend, 16 weeks a year. So we were widely known in the community for what we've done. And we promote this when we go to listing calls, right? So that people get a real grip of, you know, who we are, what we do. And then we talk about testimonials. So we all know that most testimonials say Gary and Gina are the best things since sliced bread. You know, you can only read that so many times before you go, well, that's hogwash. How can people have sun every day, right? It just, we don't get to live in sun every day. So what I did was, when I created our testimonials, we actually took problematic sales and what the problem was, and then why we got the testimonial, right? So we moved into the testimonial side of a problem to better emphasize that, yeah, you know what, we're not perfect. We go through problems, and so do people. And this is how we overcame it. And this is why they gave us the testimonial we got, right? So I just did 2, keep it simple. People don't need to read on about how good you are. They're either going to believe it or they're not, right? And then we just go into determining the value of a house, right? All the pros and cons, if you start to overprice, what it's going to mean. And this is all standard stuff that's all over the internet. I do not take credit for writing any of this. I just recreated it all, right? So, you know, don't invent new wheels, just use the ones that are out there. We put a checklist together for people so that they have the ability to be able to check things off as they're going through what they're going through, right? We talk about the top 10 reasons to work with us, a promise from us to you that we stand behind. We also have a personal satisfaction guarantee. And I know I'm going quick because we're going to run out of time, so I want to make sure we get all through this. You know, follow up through the sale and after the sale, and then talking about our personal guarantee. Well, actually, I'll get to it in a second. So we talk about what happens when they decide to work with us: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. You know, of what happens, right? So we're pushing them down the road of staying organized and understanding they're going to get pressure cooked for the next couple of weeks or months until they get ready to go on the market. Talk about what we do digitally, right? Our website and different things that we do. Virtual tours, all of that stuff, open houses, postcards. We typically don't do print. I will, you know, tell them if they want print, we'll do it, but I stay away from it. It has no way of producing anything other than recycle. And it's expensive, frankly. So we tell them we're going to use their money elsewhere, and we do. We talk about our social media, our ranking. Now, I just want to get into the personal guarantee. And again, it's going through the events, different things we do. I'm just going to move past that. So we do a seller net sheet because a lot of people have no clue how to build out what they're going to net out of a sale. So we really make it simple. And we send this to them. And we actually have an electronic version that does the math. So as they plunk in the numbers, it'll start to tell them what they're going to net out, right? So pretty quickly, if you can, don't just do a paper version, do a spreadsheet version that does the math for them. And you look like a rock star, right? That's another thing that gives you a competitive advantage. Now, this is something that we do. You have to make sure your brokerage is good with it. Our brokerage is good with it because we're really not doing anything that's unethical. It's putting some of the onus on them and on us, right? So our clients, we tell them, if you're not happy with us, it's like a marriage, right? If you're in an unhappy marriage, why do you want to be in it? You need to get out of it as soon as possible. And that's the way we act, right? And we legitimately stand behind that. So we're like, hey, if you're not happy with us, we're not happy with you. The best thing we can do is move on. So you can go work with somebody else and we can go work with somebody else. I keep it that real. People respect that. And then I pull out this document and say, we're also going to sign to the fact that if we're not doing what we say we're going to do, you have a right to terminate the agreement with us. And I sign it in writing and date it. And they've got 24 hours. If they give me notice, that we let them out of the contract, right? We signed a listing cancellation, we let them go. And that gives us a lot of competitive advantage by doing that. And I'm going to take just a minute and do one more thing. I'm going to show you our commission menu. I made this really easy. Now, commission is a lot different than you guys are in the US. Now, as we know, major pending lawsuits are happening. So commission, who knows where it's going to go over the next couple of years. I believe that it's really going to go nowhere. Just a lot of lawyers are going to get rich and politicians are, just make more money and get better positions. I think at the end of the day, you're going to have so many people rallying behind the real estate industry, mortgage brokers, banks, you name it, lawyers. They need us to get these done. And, at the end of the day, nobody was force feeding sellers to pay commission, but that's not today's conversation. But what we did was we created a really simple commission menu, and I put this out right on the table in front of them and make it really easy. So holy mackerel, that's big. Let me see if I can shrink it down a bit. You guys are okay with that?
Yep.
Yes, we can see everything is clear. Nice.
Right. Okay.
That's
So
great.
but I wanted to show you the whole page if I could, but basically it's really simple. We go from bronze level all the way to platinum, right? Now, I know in the US, you guys are typically working at a higher commission rate than we are. Usually the 6% is what I hear is negotiated quite often. 6% is a great day for us. Our markets are undermining themselves. I don't think I've ever worked at 6%. It's typically 5% is the starting line for us. And we offer 2.5% to the cooperating side, half of what we collect. And EXP doesn't enforce it, but when I was with KW, the policy there was you have to offer 2.5% no matter what. So if you took the listing at 3.5%, you're making 1%, you're giving 2.5% to the buy side. Do not undermine the buyer commission. So that was something that maybe is a bit behind what some of the public breakdown is, by virtue of this offering 2.5%. It's force feeding what buyer commission is going to be anyhow. What we've done is I always want to keep it so you have, I learned this a long time ago from a coach and mentor. If your sweet spot is 5%, then have 4 or 5 numbers on a page, right? So have as high as 7% down to 4%, because the majority of people are always going to go in the middle, right? They're never going to want to pay more, and they're never going to want to look like a cheapskate, right? So we have created this list. The majority of people come to the 5%, which is exactly where I want to be, so we can do our job. We know we're profitable. However, I will tell you what we do with people right away when I'm at the listing table, because I want the business. If I really want it, I'm going to go after it. I also solidify with them, if they're buying with us, that we're going to give them a 1% reduction right away, right? So we're going to take 5% on the sale of their house. We're going to discount down the commission on closing, because I know we're now good, and give them 1% off. And then we go get our buyer side when we do what we do. And or quite often, because we do have a large database and we can often introduce buyers, I will, depending on how you are, cohesively gluing with me, do up to a 1% write down, right? So if I know I'm going to get your business at 5% and I'm feeling really good, and I, know that we're getting along really well, I will often say, like, listen, we're going to give it to you in writing when you sign the listing agreement, that if we introduce a buyer, and we often do, we'll give you a 1% discount. I don't always go up to 1%, but often I'll just tell them, we're going to give it in writing that we're going to go from 5% to 4%. We still have to offer 2.5% to the other side, but you're going to get a 1% commission break. And in our case, it adds up to quite a lot, because the average sale for us is $1 million. So that's $10,000 they're keeping in their pocket. And in our case, we also have a sales tax called the harmonized sales tax, which is 13%. So you'd have to add another 13% onto that 10,000. So they're saving themselves nearly 11,500. That opens up people's eyebrows pretty quickly, right? And we do well by virtue of negotiating that way. I don't do it all the time. Some people just want the best service and they don't care. But I also know I'm happy to give them some discount, right? Because I also want to know that I've got you for life. That's, really the way that we operate. We're not a transactional type team. We definitely know that we want to come in and build a relationship with you, and something that, I'll wrap on this and then allow you guys to have some questions. And Tanya, if we run over a few minutes, everybody good with that if we do?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
good.
Okay, so
And if you guys have to
something
hop off, I am recording this so I can send it to you guys.
and something that's really critical, guys, like I said, get to know your avatar. We are really, really critical eyes when we go into somebody's house. So like I look at, like Tanya's place in the background. I can't see a lot, but I can see some wall art back there. I really quickly start to identify consistencies in a house, right? We really, like even Matt, I can see he's got palm trees and beaches. So I pretty quickly know that means something to him. And we start to ask when we're at the table talking, right? When we haven't yet really bonded, I go, so, I notice when I'm walking around, you got a lot of palm trees and beach scenes and stuff like that. I take it's really important. Why you tell us about that? And he's going to be a person and he's going to say, yeah, that's cool. They're interested in me. And he's going to tell you everything that you want to know. And that's a really good opportunity for you right then and there to solidify why you're better than the next person, because you were paying attention, making them feel validated. And when you close the sale, you already know what to go get them, right? The big thing when you're in social groups, you always see agents saying, I don't know what the hell to buy, vomit, it's all a bunch of nonsense. Just pay attention to what your client really likes, right? You're in their house, for God's sake, so you can see stuff. You get to know them, pay attention. And I'm going to tell you guys, spend money on them. In our case, like I said, we know our average paycheck for a client is between $15,000 and $20,000. Gina and I will typically spend about $1,000 on a client, right? Because they're going to remember that, they're going to feel the value that they're getting some of their money back invested in them through us, and we always pay attention to what they really like. Like our last client, we bought them one of those Blackstone type grills because the guy loves cottage, loves family. It's all he's about. When he's not working, he's cooking, right? So when we brought that to him, and I'd never met him, frankly. This was a client that we did everything online. We never met. I sold brand new properties that were never occupied. We listed 3 townhouses for him, and we got the job done. I really knew what he wanted out of it in a very wonky market, and we got it. And when we got what we got and gave him tons of commission benefit, we still treated him really well with gifts, because this guy, he's 40, just sold his business for $8 million. He's got all kinds of money to burn, right? And he's just waiting for the market to change direction, and he will work with us because we did everything we said we were going to do and more. And that's it.
So one of the things I just wanted to add to that, and Gary did cover it, about finding something in their home that you can see a passion or, animals, kids, something like that, that you can talk to and relate to them and make them feel like you're connecting with them. Also, one of the things he touched in is if you're giving them a 1% commission, either have a calculator with you or something like that, but you could say 1%. That might not mean something to them, but if you tell them it's a $10,000 savings, that goes a long way. So do the math for them. So even if you have to go, well, I'm going to give you 1%. So if we sell your house for this, 800,000, that's an $8,000 reduction in commission for you guys to pay. So that's great. And then when we leave, we've got some customized thank you cards that we do up, and we thank the client for allowing us to come and view their home and stuff like that. And we usually put like a scratch and win ticket in there for them, or it's in our little buyer, or I guess seller brochure too, that when we leave it with them and stuff like that. So these little touches and stuff like that, it really goes a long way.
Yeah, and so this is something too that we just had our graphics. So I would suggest all of you either find somebody good on Fiverr, or if you're in a local marketplace, find a really good graphic artist, or if your brokerage has it. This is how we started to create all this, right? Was I'm always sensitive to brand because I want people to remember us, right? Really critically.
Marketplace has thank you cards, an EXP
Right.
Enterprise Marketplace.
So, at the very least, go in there and start to use these, because I can tell you, we get more feedback off these cards than we do anything else, right? And putting a scratch and win in there, the people that win, $2, $5 free ticket, they just feel like it's over the moon for them, right? Somebody was paying attention to them and they feel special. So we do that with the birthdays, anniversary, and Christmas as well, right? Or happy holidays. We're actually rejigging our cards. Unfortunately, you know, I'm old enough that Christmas is Christmas. I celebrate Christmas the way it is, but we're in a very multicultural society these days. So people are often pretty sensitive to the word Christmas. So we're now doing 2 cards, right? One for Christmas and one for Happy Holidays. And, that's just what we do, reinvest in people being happy. Any questions?
Any questions? I don't think so.
I think
You
I have
guys,
one
was
question.
this good? Like, did you love, what were your, does anyone want to come up with their biggest tips real quickly? Like, what was your biggest takeaway?
My
Me personally? Oh, go ahead,
Oh,
Heather.
I'm sorry, Martin. No, my biggest takeaway, I mean, I love everything that you showed us. Thank you so much, Gary and Gina. But I love the Google thing. That is definitely a big plus that I'll use for my listings presentation. So that's pretty awesome. I love that. And even, doing open houses, having that, I'll do the QR code. That is super cool. I've never seen anybody do that before. So thank you.
Yeah, and it's so cool because they can click on the place and right there they can get the reviews, the like everything that you can find, directions, how far away it is, like everything. So, and then you can do schools, churches, you can just put anything in there that you want, that you feel is important for that area. And especially if you get people looking for that second property for cottage, they know they want to be in that area, but they don't know anything about it. And then it's like, click, and here's a local restaurant, here's pizza for the kids, et cetera, et cetera. Works really well.
And I want to stress, and I'll let you go right away. I think it was Martin had a question, but I want to stress, for me, and I've said this in prior trainings, and Tanya knows I say it quite often. I'm like an extremely extroverted, introverted person, right? I can be one way or the other. It really depends on who I'm in front of. And on camera, I'm a complete extrovert, whereas if you had me up in front of 500 people on a stage, then the introvert comes out, right? I'm very, not smooth as I am when I do this. So I'd be happy to have 10,000 people teach digitally every day, and I'd be good with it. But we don't get that luxury in life, right? That's how you grow, is through pain. So that's where I wanted to go with that, is in saying, listen, guys, I was really awkward, and I'm old enough that I was trained to, firstly, by my parents, hate cold callers, right? We don't like telemarketers. We don't like door knockers. So I had it embedded in me to not like that kind of environment of people, until I became somebody that had to then rely on, if I want to eat, I have to be that, right? So I firstly sucked my way to success, for lack of better words, that I had to go through the suck side of this business to learn how to get really good at it, right? And door knocking thousands of doors out in the rain. Like, I had a coach who just ground me hard if I didn't do what I said I was going to do, right? And I was always in my mind, I stink, I stink, I stink. He's like, well, you're going to just keep stinking until you're not stinking anymore. And that came through doing doors, and then just learning to be loose and confident, and away we went, right? And same thing with the phones. I never gravitated towards the phones, and then had to go to that place of, now that's how we're going to go after business. And we got good at it. And frankly, those things really taught me well how to speak at a much higher level and better with people. So I'm thankful, frankly, for the pain. And what I want to say to that is, the most critical things, guys, that I always share with everybody: you want to learn how to be confident and competent, right? So confidence first. Don't worry about what you don't know. That's why we got a million Zooms and YouTube videos. There's no reason why you can't be competent through sitting in front of a TV screen and then practicing what you learn, right? And for the love of God, don't make any stupid decisions without speaking to your broker. Your broker's there for a reason, to keep you guys out of trouble from, potentially going to jail and or having serious fines or getting suspended. And I don't mean to call anybody stupid, but don't do anything stupid, right? There's I always say heroes end up zeros, right? So just always be humble. And when you don't know, you don't know. Even for me, I don't know. And I always tell my agents that, or anybody I'm teaching, like, great question. Don't know, I'll get you the answer as soon as I can, and then go get the answer. So you both learn.
Love it. Love it.
Martin?
Sorry, can find my unmute button real quick. Thanks so much again, Gary. Great presentation again. And I was a little bit blown away with the Trello organization and everything. I dropped that I love Trello in the chat. I'm using the free version, but I've been doing that for so long that I had no idea what the capabilities were of the paid version. I am gonna invest in that one because organization is all for me. Very limited time, so have to be super efficient, I guess, in that. That way I don't have to reinvent the wheel either, because it's very easy to copy paste in Trello. So thanks for sharing that. That was super cool. And then lastly, you said that you were going to share your email address. I just took it from your signature here on Zoom. Is that the one to be used?
Yeah, and I did put it up in the chat. My phone number and email address are in the chat, guys. So anytime, right? Just reach out if we need to schedule time to have a Zoom or anything like that. You know, as long as you can just give me a bit of time, I'm always happy to jump onto a Zoom with anybody that needs some support or guidance. And I see the ladies there trying to write it down. So, you know, always happy to help. You know, it's who we are. You know, and I have to stress in wrapping, and, you know, if there's any more questions, great. But don't be a secret agent, firstly, and go and get as much training as you can. Like this stuff, when I got into the industry, this didn't even exist. You know, I was on, you know, they say, you know, real estate is a lonely island. It really was 10, 12 years ago. Now, not so much. If it is, it's because you're choosing to be there.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much, Gary.